Hi, everyone. This is Marcel with Anvil Wealth, and I have Coach Neil Mason here, and we're going to talk about some leadership today. How are you doing today, Neil?
Marcel, I'm doing great. Looking forward to this. I think it's going to be exciting for us to finally take all of our conversations offline and then bring them online and be able to share them with some people. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, good. Um, Neil and I have known each other for many years, and we've talked about leadership and doing things right and teaching people the right way and learning ourselves the right way. So we thought this would be a good topic to kind of share some of our ideas, together. They're probably similar, but we've had different experiences, so we thought we might share some of them. Um, Neil, what are some of the things that you've learned about leadership, be it with business or coaching volleyball or with clients like myself, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, one of the areas I think we could jump into is sports versus business, right? So
Mm-hmm.
while they're similar and you have a lot of, sports coaches in the NBA, NFL, Major League Sports, or even college sports try to treat their sports team like a business. And then you'll hear business owners try to reference sports metaphors, right? So maybe what we can address today would be the similarities, but also the differences versus a
Mm-hmm.
coach versus a leader. CEO and coach, I think they're different. So I'd love to maybe dive into that and get your input on that, and I can give you mine as well.
Yeah, that's a great way of painting a picture, because although I did coach before, I'm more of a business guy. So my stuff is more like the leader. But there is a component of coaching that I put into my leadership. And then there's coaches that they do more coaching, but have to put a component of leadership into their coaching. So from my perspective, it's more leadership driven. And I would say, like, the first thing is to set your goals. And obviously the number one goal is earning trust. That's the first thing you have to do, because in any relationship, you have to earn the trust first. And the first thing I always say is, you can't just like talk about trust. You have to earn it, and it takes time, just like anything. As a coach, as a business owner, as a consultant, when I've gone in places, the first thing people are like, "Oh, you're this guru, you're this management guy, you're going to fix everything." I go, "No, I'm not doing anything." And they look at me like, "What do you mean you're not going to do anything? They're paying you to do something." But I can't do anything until I earn the trust, right? So I don't know. That's the first step that I do. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think trust is critical. One of the things that I like to think about when you're working with a group, whether it's a coach position or CEO position, is shared values and what is the desired outcome for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would assume that we're on this for business, it's making more money.
Right.
Maybe for sports, it's winning. But you find even in sports, the agenda for sometimes is not always winning. Sometimes they have their own agenda. Maybe they have a contract they're trying to get to. Maybe they're trying to get more playing time on their scholarship. So I think finding the agenda and the values of each of the participants, the coach and the players, the CEO and the employees, and making sure everyone is on the same page, I think is crucial.
That's a great thing to think about from the business side, because when you're on the leadership on the business side, you're thinking more of the business on a macro level, the whole business. And really, there's just sometimes it's as easy as just talking to people one at a time.
Yeah, so I agree with you on trust, that obviously it's the foundation of any relationship, whether it's a married couple, whether it's friends, whether it's coworkers, whether it's coach, player, or CEO, employee. Your trust is there, and I don't want to diminish the need for trust. The thing that I find more important than trust, though, is shared common interests. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you're driving down the road, there's two people driving. They don't need to know each other or trust each other to understand that they don't want to hit each other, because it's in their best interest not to drive their cars into each other. So they share
True.
the
Yeah.
same, right? So they have the same, they're going the same place and they have a shared common interest.
Right.
So the same thing that I look at with coaching to start with, if the goal of the team is to win and I can help the team win, they may not know me or trust me yet. But if they know my intention is to win and I'm a good coach and I want to win and they want to win, at least we're going the same direction, which allows for us, while we develop trust, to understand that we want the same outcome. So
Right.
I put that a little bit ahead of trust, because I trust my mom, but I wouldn't want her coaching my volleyball team or running my company.
Right.
Right. So trust is crucial, but I think, are we going the same direction? Are we rowing in the same way? Is our values aligned? And is the desired outcome we have aligned? Because then that's where trust now lubricates that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, sometimes though, you enter a situation where there was no trust from the previous regime. Say you're a coach and you had a bad situation. The coach got fired. Maybe there was some bad stuff happened. And so they're naturally distrustful of you right from the get-go, not because you or me or anyone did anything wrong, but they're in an untrusting situation, not so much trust you, me, the individual. That's a different situation, because you want to have shared goals, but they'll be like, okay, well, that's great in the first meeting, but until you start showing something that shows some consistency, and maybe it's coaching, maybe it's technique, maybe it's details, but it could be as simple as getting to work earlier than everyone, every single day, being emotionally consistent, like not having ups and downs. I think that's a big one in leadership. Your demeanor, how you dress, how you carry yourself, the tone in your voice also. You talk positively, or do you have kind of a dour demeanor,
Yeah, no, I see all those little things, the relationships, the communication, the non-tangible things, I think are crucial when you're working with people. And I think in an employment situation, that goes even further than a team, because you don't have the immediate wins and losses that you do when you're playing sports, right? Like if you're like, for example, if you're a team and you start the season 0-8, you can have all the trust in the world or all the shared values. At the end of the day, the scoreboard says you're 0-8. Whereas I think, to your point, if you're coming in and running a restaurant, and maybe I'd like you to speak more to that when you've turned restaurants around, there's not necessarily a scoreboard immediately. So that culture, the relationships, the communication, the high fives, the checking on each other, that goes a long way, because there is no scoreboard.
That's an excellent point. And I would even say the sports is almost like politics. You get elected, you only have 4 years to get stuff done, so you don't have time to build that much culture and trust. You just got to make decisions. So that's an interesting dynamic to think of. Whereas, if you're in a business, the business was already making money. Now, whether it was profitable or not, it's a different question. But you come into a negative situation, but the business has cash flow, so it's making money before you get there. You're just trying to improve it so that it maximizes, the profit motive, and get people raises and some encouragement and some positive vibes,
Well, and I heard one thing too that's interesting about business. For the most part, business is what's called an infinite game, where it keeps going and going and going until you sell the business or whatever. But there's whereas a football season is 17 games. It's finite. And we either make the playoffs or we don't. Whereas in business, the reason I think, to your point, trust is so important is because you may have an employee there for 9 years and just keep going, right? So it's important for that culture to be created and the trust to be built, to your point, so that it's a good place where they want to go to work every day. Whereas the season is over, the season is then over, right? And in college sports, you only have 4 seasons. So I think that's a good differentiator as well.
Yeah. One thing I would say that that is shared is you need to create high standards. And so usually when you come in, the good leaders come into bad situations, because that's usually when they need your help the most, is when, so to speak, the shit hits the fan. And so as a good coach, they're going to hire you because there was a bad coach previously. Same thing as a good leader in business. But high standards is really a big thing. And one of the funniest things I've found in both sports and business is most people, even in a bad situation, they want high standards. The problem is the previous leadership didn't carry the high standards that they wanted anyways. So it's not a hard ask. It's not hard to get buy-in, because the business people, they want to work for a better business. And the athlete wants to work for a better team. They want to be a better team. So high standards is not difficult to create, but you got to set the standard and you have to require it from everybody, including yourself, of course.
Yeah, what I hear when you say standards is I hear two words. One is organization,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second one is conscientiousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you very rarely find someone with high standards that's disorganized,
Right.
and you don't find someone with high standards that's not conscientious. And by
Yeah.
conscientious, I mean really focusing, being mindful, being organized, structured. Like,
Mhm.
and I think that that's a key factor in being a good coach and a good leader. To your
Right.
point, the standard has to start with yourself, but it's
Right.
really hard to have a good standard if you're sloppy. So it goes back to like
Yeah.
making your bed,
Right.
having routines. Like you can't be sloppy in your personal life and then go into your professional life and have high standards, because then
Yeah.
the employees are going to look at you like, wait a second, something doesn't add up here. It's not
Yeah.
aligning.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And that could be harsh because all of us have imperfections, and some of us have imperfections that are, more obvious, and people don't like to hear that because then they think you're picking on them. But I think that we all should I believe in personal responsibility. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, and I'm not, the best looking guy in the world, but it's one of those things that I do try and present myself well. And I always try and, look like I'm going to be there. I'm going to be, present in the moment, and I'm ready to go, and I'm dressed appropriately. And, you have to present yourself,
Yeah, I think well, and that's the thing too, right? I think you said that none of us are perfect, and I don't think that perfect is the goal, but the
Right.
goal is to try to be as perfect as possible.
Exactly.
So it's not being perfect. It's, are you doing your best to be as perfect as possible in as many areas in your life as possible?
Exactly.
Right. And that's where your standard comes in, right? So
Yeah.
the standard doesn't have to be, they have to dress a certain way, or they have to be in a certain shape, or they have to speak a
Oh,
certain
no,
way,
no.
or make a
Right.
certain, it's about, are you setting a standard for yourself to be the best version of yourself at all times in as many
Exactly.
areas of your life as possible? And then
Yeah.
does that translate to your team and your organization?
Yeah. Yeah. The next part of leadership is build infrastructure, is actually find specific ways that help the organization, but that also help the individuals in the organization. I use an example from volleyball, like having nice, good poles and nets and ball carts and balls, and just the little things that you need to be able to run an efficient practice. Coming into a situation where you have one ball cart and you need 3 or 4 to get all the drills done. Those are little details that make everything flow quicker. In business, it's the same thing. Like I've come into, like, let's use a restaurant, for example. They didn't have enough spoons. They're always out of spoons. And so you'd go to serve, a cup of coffee. You didn't have a spoon for the customer. That's ridiculous. So you had to make sure you ordered the spoons, little things like that. But infrastructure is important because that immediately gets some results. The subordinates, or the people working or coaching, they actually feel some success. They're like, oh, cool, you actually made my job a little bit easier here,
Yeah, well, you mentioned before about standards, and then I layered on top of that organization and conscientiousness.
Mm-hmm.
That ties into the same thing, right? Is, okay, you walk into the restaurant, you have a checklist of what you need. Is it, we need 35 spoons? Well,
Right.
if you have 29, you failed.
Right.
You need 35 knives, you need 61 pans and pots, whatever it is in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So going back to your standards in your organization, and my conscientiousness comment
Mm-hmm.
is, a good leader has to come from a place of structure, like you said, infrastructure,
Right.
organization, and being able to measure and manage these things, and being able to express that to your team. So to your point, you're going to have a checklist of the number of spoons, knives, forks. You're going to have place settings, all these things you're going to have organized out, to your
Right.
point, which
Right.
then when your employees do or don't perform, it's very clear. And then it's unambiguous. Hey,
Right.
I only have 22 spoons. Well, we
Right.
need 35.
Right.
It's not personal.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other part of leadership, and I'd like to get your opinion on this too, is celebrate your successes with the team. Some of them can be a simple verbal thank you for doing something, Other ones can be, like in business, would be bonuses, for example, and especially the unexpected bonus. When someone does something good and you get something, either money or a gift card to a restaurant or something. And then third is recognition within the organization and outside the organization via press release or telling the higher ups that someone else did something really good, or telling your vendors that one of your employees did something good. I think celebrating success is important because we don't get enough of that. There's not enough times where you say thank you, you say good job, you say congratulations, I'm really proud of you. Those things are important. They have a really powerful effect on people.
So where I take that is I put going to your 3 buckets. Just being polite, being kind, thank yous, please, going out of their way to be, and I don't want to use the word chivalrous, but opening doors, creating a culture of high fives or whatever, just things that are free. Thank you, Marcel. Acknowledging that, sending a nice text message or email. That stuff, I think you're 100% right. We just need to do more of it, and it doesn't cost anything. Now, you talk about bonuses. Obviously, there's a finite amount of bonus you can give based on your budget, but certain people, bonuses matter a lot, not only for their personal finances, but they need to know that they're being appreciated, and the best way to do that is to write a check, or give them money. And then the last point you make of recognition to others, there's a saying, praise publicly, criticize privately. Praising someone publicly, whether, like you said, a press release or bringing someone up in management or recognizing them at the last Friday of every month, again, that stuff goes a long way. And I think what's important for those that are listening to us right now, and you can speak to this, Marcel, is some people need one of those 3 to be more money, more praise, or just day-to-day gratitudes. You need to get in the practice of doing all the above and figuring out what each person needs and leaning into what they want. And if they are motivated by money, find a way to give them a bonus.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree, because people are motivated differently. You're right, and that's an important part to add as well. So,
how would you give me an example in your restaurant of? We know the bonus is the money's there, but if you had someone in your restaurant who really needed that attaboy, the high five, the great job, Christina, Mike, you're crushing it today, or the recognition where you wrote them a letter of support to the CEO, praising their work. Like, give me a couple examples where you actually took the time to do that, and then you saw the reward pay off down the line.
Well, the simple, the one that's easiest when you run restaurants is giving free meals to your staff, because the general rule of thumb is they get 50% off, right? But I worked in some nice restaurants, and some of the higher end items are not cheap. So you get a filet and it's 40, 50, 60 bucks. The staff's not going to spend, even at half price, they don't want to spend 25 bucks for a steak. So if you give them something like that, that's a big deal in the restaurant business, because imagine you're serving all these beautiful fillets, going out the window and serving these customers. All night you're sitting there going, God, I wish I could just devour a filet mignon right now, medium rare. So those things have a lot of power in that example, But a lot of times I wouldn't tell them that I would do it. I would just watch and let them be themselves and let the good come out. And then they realized that what they were doing was right, and I reinforced the positive behavior. So that was the easiest or quickest way to do it, Got it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was fun too. And I always want people to have fun. When you work hard at anything, at coaching volleyball, playing football, working in business, anything should be fun. The only thing I give that probably isn't fun is working in medicine and healthcare, because you're dealing with sick people and it's not good. But anything else, you should try and make it fun, whatever it can be,
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you so let's not compare and contrast, but for the purpose of what we're talking about now, sports versus business.
Right.
One of the things I think in sport is, for me, because I was a good player, but I wasn't the best player, is playing time, right? And you could be getting all the attaboys, all the good job, coach.
Sure.
We love,
Yeah.
but if you're not playing, it's really hard. An attaboy or a recognition, if I'm not playing, only goes so far.
Correct.
Do you think in the same thing in business relates where somebody, you tell them how great they're doing, you praise them, you recognize them, but they're still not getting a bump in salary? Do you think that compares to kind of the playing time, or how do you think that relates?
Well, I wish it was an easy canned answer, but that it's so individualized because business is such a fluid thing. Whereas, like you said, any sport, you have a finite period. You got to have wins and losses. You got to make the playoffs. So the decision for a coach to either play or not play a person, it's really has to be made quickly. Whereas a decision to either give a raise or to promote someone usually is a little more it's kind of a moving target, and it's fluid. It's always kind of either improving or not. So yeah, it's a little bit different in that sense, but I guess it's just fluid is the word I would use, because it depends. If the person's not pulling their weight and they're not getting any better, well, then obviously they're not getting a bonus. But if people are improving and they have a good attitude and they contribute to the team, I think that you have to do something for them. And it could be monetary. It could be improved title and responsibilities. If you can't do it monetarily, you can give them a better title, give them more responsibility, and create a path for them to get a raise,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then what are some different things you would suggest? Because obviously if someone hires Anvil to come in and help their restaurant, or someone says, hey, Coach Neil, come in and take a look at my volleyball team or so forth, we can have that set of eyes. That's great. But for people out there who don't have the ability to do that, or they want to go back to their own restaurant today, what are some things immediately from a leadership perspective you can do right now with your restaurant, that some little tips and tricks, like you said, giving food to your key employees, or what are some things now that they can do to improve their leadership, or tangible takeaways that they can do right now that'll make a difference in the culture and the vibe within their team?
Well, usually with businesses, the problem is the owner creates the business and the business grows, but the business grows faster than the owner grows as a leader. So what ends up happening is you have a business that's bigger than the leader is a leader. And so there's deficiencies there. That's where I come in and help try and train the owners or the CEO, the leadership, how to be better at the new level that they're at. It's tough though, because a lot of owners don't want to be told how to run their own business. I mean, it makes sense. I always get this. I've been doing this for 40 years. And I could cite examples and I could say, well, you've been doing this and this and this wrong for 37 years. And the problem is they just keep doing it because the business can sustain itself even with certain mistakes that they just can't see it. They just assume because the business is good, it's right, but it's wrong. And then after they change it, they're like, wow, that was really good. That really helped. So really getting over the resistance level, and quite frankly, I'm the same way. I'm very knowledgeable. I've ran big businesses, and using a consultant is really difficult for me, because what is a consultant going to tell me about what I do better than what I already know? But the funny thing is, Neil, is that when I've used a consultant, it has paid me back 10, 20, 30 times more than what I paid for the consultant. Again, that's if you hire a good one. If you have someone who doesn't know what they're doing, it's a waste of money. But I have to admit that initially I was resistant because I don't want to be told. But once I broke down my own wall and said, you know what, I need a consultant. I need the eyes and someone that's smart and understands me and my business. They're going to find ways to help me. So I didn't take it as like it's personal that I'm stupid or that I don't know what I'm doing. I just wanted to grow. And to do that, I have to challenge myself.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of really, really, really fascinating points. The idea of getting outside eyes. And here's the example I use. You'll find someone working at a low-wage job or someone running a very small business, both which are commendable. You have a job, you're doing your best job. There's kudos to that. Or if you have a solopreneur business, whatever that is, I won't give examples. your small business, you're doing 100 grand a year in revenue, whatever that number is.
Right.
It's funny because those two types of people are often the most stubborn.
Right.
And they're passionately invested in their opinion. Whereas you look at companies like Microsoft and Amazon, they will go out and hire McKinsey and
Right.
spend $10,000 a day on consulting
Right.
to get it. And even though they're already a $2 trillion company, a $3 trillion company.
Right.
So the CEO of Amazon will hire a consultant, but John, who runs, a taco truck or stand, he knows everything.
Right. Right.
Right? Or Bill Belichick will bring in Chip Kelly, will bring in other helpers, Sean McVay, Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, some of the best coaches of all time. They'll bring in outside eyes, right? But then you're the high school JV coach. He knows everything. Right? So what I found, Marcel, what's fascinating is I want to help as many people as possible. And I end up getting stuck with trying to help the people that need help the most.
Right.
And then what I realize is the people that are actually doing the best are the people that will hire you. And the people that need you the most are so stubborn and set in their ways, they won't hire you. And I'm finally learning that lesson. I mean, do you see that as well?
Yeah, I do. It's pretty funny, actually. I'm in 100% agreement. And, if they figure it out, then I'm here and hopefully I can help. I'm sure I can. I mean, I was looking back at all my different projects and jobs and different things I've done over the years. And I've actually succeeded in every single one. Now, there's different levels of success, yes, but I've succeeded in every single project. It's gotten better from the time I got there to the time I left. It was a better situation. And I could not find one single thing that I didn't leave in a better situation in my life when it comes to professional coaching, teaching, or leadership or business.
Yeah, it's amazing. The idea of improving yourself, it starts with self-assessment and being aware. And so many people, we all have it. And I'm not pointing the finger. I'm pointing the thumb as well at myself, which is we just lack awareness, and we're unaware and we don't see our blind spots. And, I heard a really interesting saying. A guy talks about, and he was, I think it was Siddhartha. He's like a Sikh or a Sikh or a speaker. He's very famous. And I'm butchering his name. My apologies. But he said that if you don't brush your teeth for 3 weeks and your nose is an inch from your mouth, you can't smell yourself. But you haven't brushed your teeth. You can't smell even though your nose is an inch from your mouth. You go 3 weeks without brushing your teeth, you don't smell your breath.
Right.
But everybody in the room can smell you.
Right.
But the minute you walk into the room and someone didn't put on deodorant an hour ago, you're like, that person smells.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
So it's funny because you smell worse than everybody, but you can't smell yourself, even though it's so close to you. But you're quick to point out other people where they smell.
Right.
And that's the thing with coaching and with running a business is if you have Marcel at Anvil, if you have Coach Neil, that could just say to you, hey, you might want to brush your teeth today. Yeah. Or, hey, don't be so hard on John because he smells, because he forgot deodorant this morning. You haven't brushed your teeth in 3 months, right? And getting that mindset of awareness, and someone like yourself comes into the restaurant and says, you're doing a great job, but try giving better service with maybe bringing the water faster, or try putting a mint on the bill or whatever. And all of a sudden you can see that improvement. Whereas without you, they're left there spinning their wheels. What do you think?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great saying. I've noticed that too. Like when someone comes into a room, an office, or like Starbucks or something, and they either smoked a cigarette outside or smoked some weed outside, and it's all over their clothes. So when they walk in the door, it just smells like smoke, and they don't realize, they're thinking, nobody saw me smoking that cigarette outside. But yeah, we know you smoke. The whole place can smell you,
Yeah. Yep.
It's kind of funny.
But that's the point of why we need another set of eyes. We need another set of ears. You need even if your business is crushing it, you call Anvil to come in and just let me just look around. Let me ask some questions. And maybe it's you're doing amazing, Joe, but double down on what you're doing because go deeper, invest more, right? And it's not like you don't bring in guys like yourself and myself who we may not tell you everything that's wrong. We may say what you're doing is right, but do more of it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just to come in to be critical. A lot of it can be just reassurance that you are doing things right, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
So then what else? You mentioned you had some other leadership points. Do you want to finish your list? Because I got a few maybe I can ask you about.
Yeah, I had a couple. One of them is prepare for your first contact because your first contact is really important. People remember that. So, you know, the obvious stuff, dress sharp, be rested when you go to the first meeting, eat a good, you know, meal, breakfast or lunch, depending on the time of day, and prepare your talking points and practice speaking. Like I go through, I do like when I've had different meetings, I try and do a few sessions to get comfortable with the material, you know? And then the second part is as you walk in, take a deep breath and smile. Everyone's watching you because they know you're the new guy or you're the guy coming to speak. I always stop and try and meet people and say hello and shake hands and ask them something about them, you know, what's their connection to the event, you know, speak calmly, but speak with enthusiasm too. Like act like you want to be there. Don't just be like, oh, hi, Joe. Oh, nice to meet you. You work here? Okay, great. You know, like fire it up a little and go, hey, man, it's really nice to meet you. And I'm glad you're here. And, you know, I hope to share some good things with you and hopefully some things help, you know, just the tone alone, you know. And then the last two things, and I kind of put this my calling card is, I don't know if I can solve every problem. I don't know if I'm perfect. I'm probably not. But I can tell you two things. I will always work hard and do my best, and I care. Those two things are non-negotiable. And so I say that because sometimes we assume that people are like that. But until you commit to it and say it, I've always said it. Every time I've been hired for a job, I always said, I will work my butt off and I care. Those two things you cannot take from me. And, you know, for what it's worth, hopefully that's a good philosophy to have in leadership, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's very simple, a simple way to live, very clear, concise, simple. It's not complicated. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I think we touched on pretty much everything on the leadership. Do you have anything you want to add to it, Neil?
Yeah, I have a couple I want to run by you now. So maybe let's turn the tables around.
Yeah.
One of my big things about leadership, and I got this from my mentor, was awareness. And we talked about it before, but there's a saying I use called HURA, H-U-R-A. Hear, understand, respect, accept. You got to hear people, and you hear them not only with your ears, but your eyes.
Right.
Understand who they really are. Respect them for who they are without judgment, and then accept who they are. Okay.
Right.
So if you're a leader and you're walking into a new restaurant, Marcel, you're taking over a volleyball team or basketball team or whatever,
right?
You have to coach and lead the people the way they want to be coached or to be led.
Correct. Yes.
Right. And for example, one company I consulted for before, they really wanted to do work from home. And work from home works for some people, but there are certain people who need to get into the office. They need the structure, right? So not everybody wants to work from home. Right. The same thing, like even with the 4-day work week. Some companies are pushing, hey, work 4 days only. Well, there's certain people who want to work 5, 6, 7 days a week.
Right.
Right. So part of what I'm a big believer of, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, before I do anything when I get hired, I do personality assessments, 2 of them. And I do a deep dive. I want to know who you are before I start suggesting what you do.
Right.
And then when I get to know how you think, your views on money, your views on, do you want to work with a team? Do you want to work independently? Because there's coders who want to work throughout the night by themselves. They don't want to go to an office. Right. Once I understand who you are individually, then I can see how you fit within the collective. So I think part of leadership is treat everybody fairly, but they don't have to be treated equally.
Yes.
What says you about that? The idea of testing, understanding, awareness before you make a decision on what you're going to do with each person.
Yeah, I would say I've never done a sophisticated personality assessment. I know that you do, and you've been teaching me a little bit about that. And I do want to continue to develop my understanding and use of that. But yeah, you definitely want to get to know how they're going to fit in the puzzle. You know, I use the example of running a restaurant. Is when you kind of watch, you can kind of see their personalities as they go through the day. Little things on how they interact each time with the busser. Because usually if they're a jerk, they're going to treat the busser mean. And if they're nice, they ask politely to the busser. And then watch the busser's response. If the busser hustles to the table, that means they like that server or they respect that server. And if they're kind of dragging their feet, it's because they don't like that server. They're like, this guy's a jerk. I'm going to take my time doing that task that he asked for. But yeah, no, that's a great point. I like learning at least getting a feel for your staff. But like you're saying, the personality assessment is one way of doing that. And I do want to get better at that because I've never done it formally. It's more informal, a little bit based more on feel, not numbers and science. But I do want to get better on the numbers and science part of it.
Okay, cool. One other thing for leadership I want to throw out to you and tell me what you think of this is we think everything is forever. Till death, you get married till death do us part.
Right.
We reference back to the day and age where our parents worked for a company for 40 years and then, we're given a gold watch, right? 50 years. And relationships, the longer they last, the better.
Right.
What if I actually could say this? If you're hiring and somebody works for your business for 3 months and they do a great job, that's okay. They don't have to work for your business for 10 years. Maybe 3 months. Maybe that was just a bridge to get them during the summer to help them pay for college, right?
Right.
What if you have someone who their goal is to work longer term because they're looking at more stability in their family's finances?
Right.
The point is, the relationships that are transactional are okay within your business, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of understanding that it doesn't have to be till death do us part. If you marry someone for 7 years and it was a great 7 years, awesome. If you're married for 50, it doesn't have to be. And I think now with the generation now in 2023 and 2024, people want mobility. They don't want to work at a company for 15 years. They want to spend a couple years and move on. And I think it's fascinating that Amazon says, even if you work for us, we're going to train you to get a better job somewhere else. And I think the idea of taking care of the employee, finding what's in their best interest, not you need to work for me and give me all your blood and sweat and tears so I can make more money as a CEO. I think those days are pretty much over. And now it's more of a collaborative effort between the employee and the management. What do you think?
Totally agree. And I can tell you why that happens. That's generational. The baby boomers are taught that way. Generation X, millennials are not taught that way. We believe in collaborative. And so it's funny, all those examples you just said, I've done transactional seasonal employees at the car wash because we're busy in the summer, we're dead in the winter. So I tell them, I say, when you hire them, tell them in March that we only need them until September, October. And then that way they know it's just that we don't have to fire them. We don't have to terminate them. It's just basically, it's like a contract. And they're wonderful people. And usually they don't want to sweep the car wash for more than 6 months. It's not the funnest job in the world. They usually work, make some money, get on their feet or whatever, and go get the next job. But I've also encouraged all of my employees to always be, and I've been this way myself, always be bettering yourself for the next job. Always try and improve for the next thing, because if you just have one skill set and you lose your job, you're done. You got nothing. And you always want to have other things to fall on. So like one of my employees, I told her, because we were talking, and she's had banking finance experience. She worked for Bank of America in their auditing. So she's pretty smart gal, and she helps me. And I told her, I said, why don't you go after your real estate license, because you know a lot of this stuff. And she said, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. And so she started getting her real estate license. Now, she still works for me right now, but it's one thing I highly encourage because I want her to have a backup. And you always should. And I like the person. And if anything were to happen to our company or to her job or something happens, I want her to be able to land on her feet and continue to make money and have a healthy and productive life. She means a lot to me,
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the things, and I had a client who you're going to meet at one point. So I got to be careful not to mention too much of his story because you'll meet him one time.
Right.
And I don't want to give it away, but he actually is an entrepreneur, and he's in his mid-30s. And you know, he said, "Look, give me some advice." And I said, "Okay, walk me through what's going on." And he said, "Okay, well, I've got this big investment opportunity in energy and in real estate, and it's a big deal. You know, 8-9 figures, big deal." And he said it's going to hit in the next year or two, and he's all in. And I said, "Okay, great." I go, "What are some of the hiccups?" He said, "Well, my wife asked me a question. What am I going to do if this doesn't work?"
Right.
I said, "What'd you tell her?" He said, "Well, I told her I'm all in." And I said, "Okay." And then I said, we kept talking. I said, "Well, how are the finances right now?" He's like, "Yeah, things are tough, but she's helping support me a little bit." I said, "Okay, great." So then he asked for my advice on what I should do. I said, "You need to get a job." He said, "What?"
Yeah.
I said, "Get a job." He goes, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I'm all into my business." I said, "Your wife was saying to you without saying it that she's striving and yearning for stability. And it's not that she doesn't believe in you. It's that you can," I go, "you're not a single guy anymore. You could, you know, when you're single, you can live on a couch, you could sofa surf, you can eat McDonald's, but you're now married.
Right.
You need to get a job because you're putting her under stress that she doesn't realize."
Correct.
And you're not being selfish, but you're just not understanding who she is.
Right.
And I bring that up because you made a really good point about about the lady that worked for you.
Mm-hmm.
You said, "Look, I want you to get your real estate license because I know that'll provide you with more security and more peace just in case this doesn't work out. And I love you enough that I'm looking out for your future, even if you're not." And I think, Marcel, that is such a compassionate way to run a business. And it's I love that, hearing that story, understanding what people need, even if they don't know they need it at the time.
Right. Yeah, I felt like that. And in fact, as a leader, sometimes, or at least it's a perceived weakness, it's not that it's a weakness, is that I am empathetic. And a lot of people think that's a sign of weakness, when in reality, it's a sign of strength. And sometimes people underestimate you because you're nice and you're empathetic and you care about people. But the funny thing is for the one bad employee that you have to deal with because they try and take advantage of you, you have 99 amazing, happy, fulfilled employees that got your back, you know? So is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but it's worked for me. And I have a handful of bad employees or situations that, you know, didn't work out so good, but there were so many many more times, high quality people that did well that I'm still in contact today with, you know?
Yeah. It comes from, the thing about it is you care.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked about leadership, all these different things. We talked about trust, organization, infrastructure, you know, awareness. But you know what goes longer and further than anything is genuinely caring and giving a shit about your people.
Yeah, that's it.
And when I listen to you, you actually care about your people. And a lot of times, and this goes back to why you need outside help, why you need to bring Anvil in, you know, why we can help you, is if you genuinely care about your people,
right,
you want to get it right. You don't want to be right.
Exactly.
And being right is me. I'm right. Getting it right is I care so much about my team that I'm willing to bring somebody else in to better my team than to and check my ego at the door. So I think your point, Marcel, on that is really well received.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've always felt that way. I didn't just think that through as you and I are talking. That's just my philosophy on things, you know?
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's end with a couple quick hitters. Somebody out here gets a hold of this video. It's been long. We've been going for 30 minutes or so. Yeah. They get a hold of this video. They find what you're doing impactful. What are 3 quick takeaways that, and quick doesn't mean it happens quickly, but what are 3 things quickly that they can get from you bringing Anvil Wealth into their business? 3 things, quick though.
Well, the 3 things, number 1 is a clean set of eyes that's honest, that's not going to just tell them what they want to hear. That's the main thing. Good or bad, I'll tell the truth. The second one is finding solutions within your structure, within your team, within what you have. It's not about just coming in and tearing everything up. And, you know, a lot of businesses have already been making money before I get there. So I recognize and appreciate that they have a good business. We're just trying to make it better. So think of it not as I'm going to come in and criticize your business, but I want to come in and make your business better and create value. So that's the second one. And the third one is learn to do things differently if you need to, not just to be different. A lot of times, like, the word politically right now is progressive. Well, progressive means throw everything away and start over. No, not necessarily. You can hang on to a lot of the good core fundamental stuff and then adjust accordingly to improve it. And don't just sit and go, I've been doing this for 40 years. No, you've been doing it wrong for 37. So let's find those things you're doing wrong for 37 years and add it to all the things you're doing right for 40 years, and you're going to make a lot of money and everyone's going to be happy.
Okay, another quick hitter. List off as many as you can as fast as possible. Different businesses, industries, corporations, sports, different areas where you can help. For example, car wash, restaurant, go.
Okay. Restaurants, fast food, full service, car washes, self-storage, shipping, parcel shipping. Let's see. U-Haul rentals, U-Haul memberships, real estate. It could be commercial. It could be single family homes. It could be multifamily apartments, hair salon, nail salon. What else? Videography and photography. What else?
Well, let me give you another topic to kind of. Yeah. So and again, I know there's some of your other videos you touch on Anvil Wealth and the real estate and buying and flipping in your real estate portfolio that you're putting together. Walk us through maybe briefly 3 different areas in whether it's moving to Alabama and Tennessee, whether it's real estate. Again, 3 areas that if someone is aspiring to go down that path, you could help with within the real estate realm. Wait,
say the question again.
So we know you can help with car washes, storages, laundromats,
right.
We know you can do that now. Okay. Now within real estate in itself, whether it's out-of-state properties, whether it's buying and flipping, whether it's identifying. Yeah. Give me just real quick hitters on areas of segments within real estate that you can also help companies or individuals with.
Okay. Well, the first one is assessing a business, assessing a real estate. It could be a commercial business, like a building or a warehouse or whatever, or it could just be land or a single family home. So assessing it is number one. That's the hardest thing, because a lot of people will just look at a house and go, oh, that's pretty, but you don't know if the foundation's right. You don't know if the roof is right. All the different steps. But that's the main thing, is assessing the business or the building. A lot of people have trouble with that, because if you don't do it all the time, you might buy a house once in 20 years, or you might buy a business once in 20 years. But I'm dealing with a lot of different businesses all the time. So I know I have a feel for what's going on specifically within most of the industries. The other one is financing. That's something I've gotten really good at, is understanding complex financing methods, models, interest rates, refinancing, and using capital and leverage. So that's another one that I really like to help with.
Perfect. And then if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to get a hold of you, and where can they find you?
Just go to the website. It's marceldoumerc.com. You see my name on the screen right there. Very easy, and you can fill out an email form on that, or just call me, and email's on there. You can get a hold of me real easy.
Yeah, I think, Marcel, this kind of took a life of its own.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we did this, because you and I talk a lot of times offline about this stuff, but to get it in one place, to button it up, and to be able to share with people your view on leadership and the way I view leadership, whether it's in sports or in business, to me, I think that there's something special there. And the more we keep doing this, the more we keep sharing these message and our voice with people, we're hoping that we can help you get 1% better in your business, and we can help you, achieve the dreams and goals that you want for yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well said, Neil. Well said.
Perfect. Well, I guess we'll see you next episode.
All right. Thanks, man. From Anvil Wealth, thank you all, and have a great day.